Yay! Happy Earth Day, everyone! I am so excited to be hanging out today with the Gente TMRG in honor of Earth Day. We thought we'd do a little sustainable activity to the tune of some mending. So I don't know about you all, but um, my body sometimes has different shapes and I'm buying a lot of different clothes and I don't always want to go and buy more. So I really love finding the time where I can to, instead of throwing something away, because that makes my skin crawl, mend it. Also, I do have 4 young children, so we have lots of pants with knees missing, random seams falling apart, and of course, stuffed animals that sometimes need surgery. So all that being said, Natalie had an amazing session at unconference session last year at Summit. Let me get my words right. And it was so great. I was like, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if we could record it, if we could get together and just like go through the content that she pulled together, because it is very near and dear to my heart. Of course, we're celebrating Earth Day. Anything we can do to help support Mother Earth, I am here for it. So Natalie, hi, how are you?
I'm
I
good.
want to hear everything about you. I realized I don't even know where you're based out of.
Yeah, I'm in San Francisco Bay Area in California.
Okay, how long have you been with GitLab now?
I've been here about a year and a half. Yeah, year and a half.
Nice. Okay, and you are a senior manager, technical program management. Can you tell me a little bit about that before we get into it?
Yeah, totally. So I lead our technical program management team on the product org side of the house. And so we're a team of people who our job is to help better enable all of the efforts that are happening in product and engineering. And so we help with new product delivery, monetization of those products. We have a cab that we do with our customers. We help with escalations. We are a big mixed bag of skills.
Love that. I know I sometimes see you in the CEO channel talking about Duo, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you are so busy. Thank you so much for making the time to meet with us today.
Yeah.
Um, so with that being said, yes, I will share the Zoom background, Gabby. I got you. I want to hear everything about mending. Tell us
Okay.
everything.
Cool. So I made last year for Unconference, I made a slide deck. So I'm going to share that and we'll talk through stuff there. It's hard to teach mending over Zoom because it's a lot easier when you can be like up next to something and sewing it, but we'll do our best. Okay, let me share my screen. Let's see. Hmm, doesn't want to share. Let's
I
see.
totally, oh yeah, it's coming. I was gonna say, I've got it. I've got the slides here too if needed.
Let me see if I can do this another way. It's sort of it's acting really weird. Let's
I'm
try
telling
this.
you, the updates, they're like constant, right? And then
Yeah.
everything needs to recalibrate. Ooh,
Okay, can you
beautiful.
see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I just repurposed I mended the slide deck from last year. So that's what we're doing. Um The reason I put this together is because I was thinking about mending clothes instead of buying new, and that's something that I try to really put into practice. And so that's what this whole sort of deck is about. I've already done a super brief intro about me, but like related to mending and textiles, I'm a hobby textile maker. So like I knit, I do a lot of hand sewing, I weave, I have a loom, and I like to mend things. My dream project is to grow a field of flax and like process that into linen and then weave that into some like very expensive and labor intensive napkins. Um, I have researched the steps to do that, but wow, it would be really hard. So that's a dream project. Anyway, so brief history of textiles, or in my opinion, why fabric is wild. So, in order to make a piece of fabric, like just anything that you're wearing right now, or any of the fabric around you, like your upholstery or anything like that, a vast amount of material is needed. And that has to be a specific kind of plant or animal fiber, at least historically. Um, it has to then be cleaned, it has to be spun. Many hours of labor that are both a chemical and physical transformation of the proteins of that material into something that can be a string. And then it requires a loom or other mechanism like knitting to weave that into a piece of fabric. Anything beyond just simple like plain weave, which is just backward and forward weaving, requires very intricate looms with a ton of labor, maintenance, um, and a lot of specialized skill sets in engineering. Um, and that's just to get like brown material. Like if you want it to be any other colors, like then you have to get into dyeing and all the skills associated with that. So for most of human history, a given piece of fabric was a treasured and very costly commodity. It took so much work and like entire families to make just their own clothing for that like time period. This image here is a tunic. That's a 1,000-year-old tunic from Egypt, and it has been mended many, many, many times. So when historians were looking at this piece of like this garment, they determined that it was actually originally cut for an adult size and then mended and like scaled down for a child. And then it was like lovingly embroidered and mended so that it could last for multiple uses. So all of the brown embroidery here, that's a functional, it's like a darn to keep the fabric together and reinforce it as it was falling apart, but also done beautifully so that it would be decorative. These are all little patches of like there was a hole and it was repaired. The seam split and they repaired it. The edge was falling apart and so they reinforced it. They added decorative borders to reinforce the way the collar was coming apart. And so this is like an ancient practice because it was such a treasured commodity. So that being said, in today's world, um, fabric is still very wild and requires all those same resources, but it now happens sort of outside of our space. It used to be that everybody needed people in their community or their own hands to make their fabrics. But now it happens in factories sort of away from us. And so we're no longer as connected to like the sheer amount of resources required to make fabrics. We can now make things out of plastic, but that still requires a lot of resources to do it. Um, so that has made fabric very abundant and it's become less of a valuable commodity because we now see it as just readily available, seasonal, something we don't really have to like think about the labor that goes into it. But what that means is that we have so much fabric and we don't treat it with the sort of appropriate level of resources in, resources out. So this series of images here, this is a close-up of this giant pile of used clothes in South America. It's actually in Chile. This is from space, this image. Like you can see the giant pile of clothes. It's just a landfill of fabric that people threw away. And this happens all over the world. America especially is a big contributor of like clothing waste. And so, in my opinion, we should really try not to put clothes in the landfill. Let's just try to reuse them. And if we can't reuse clothes, what can we use the fabric for instead? So that's how I started thinking about this as like a waste thing. But then also, there's a lot of other reasons people mend things. So one of them is like some people really get into mending from a self-reliance perspective of just like wanting to be able to fix things themselves. Some people get into it because you can make really beautiful things and it's a form of art. And some people get into it because it's not being on your computer all day. And handcrafts are a wonderful way to step away from being on your computer all day. So a lot of people approach mending from different perspectives. I approached it from the Earth Day perspective, I guess, at first, but then these other reasons became really important to me too. Here's some examples of some things that I've mended. Um, this is a shirt that like was getting holes incrementally as it was going up the shirt. It still has more, so I'm like slowly piecing together like quilting and embroidering it onto it. This is a wool sweater that had a hole. It was my stepmom's sweater, and she was like, "It's a very nice sweater, but it's got a big hole in it." And so I felted in some red wool into the shape of a heart onto her sweater. These are some sheets that had holes in them and otherwise would have been thrown away, and so patched them on both sides and made the patch like really flat and smooth. This is a quilt that ended up being like pretty poor quality material. And as you can see, it's like holes are popping up everywhere. And so I've made myself like a template for the shapes that are in that quilt. And then I'm slowly patching it as time goes on. These are some jeans that had a rip in the knee. Um, these are some of my mom's bell bottoms that had holes all over the place. And I found some like flowered fabric and then had the embroidery expand out into the jeans. There's a pair of shorts that like from the seam at the bottom was ripping. And so I did a little rainbow pattern to stitch it back up. And I also love darning socks. So a lot of my socks are darned now, instead of buying new ones. I haven't bought new clothes in a really long time. Like I really just keep things and redesign them into other things. Um, how to mend clothes. So the first thing is kind of like, what is the right tool for the job? I just put this picture here of this is what's in my mending kit. So I have like needles of varying sizes for different types of fabrics, thread of different colors and sizes, scissors, a seam ripper, that's this guy here with the white handle to like unstitch things and then put them back together. I have an embroidery hoop because it's just easier to hold things that way. This guy here is a darning loom, which makes it easy to quickly darn socks. I have a thimble, a measuring tape. I even have an Easter egg because sometimes I need something that's round underneath to like make a nice curve while I'm mending. But like honestly, this is what you need. You just need a needle and thread and your teeth if you don't have scissors. Like just that's it. You can totally mend something with a simple needle and thread. Most people have that. Anytime you go to a hotel, they'll have a little sewing kit. Like that's enough. You can mend anything with that. Um, the easiest way to get started is to just find something you want to mend and give it a try. Just see what you can do. The cool thing about sewing is you can just cut out what you did. Like if you sew a patch onto it and you hate it, just take it out. Try again later. Um, yeah, so that's a bit about mending, and that's the overview of it all. The other thing that's not in this deck is that here, I'll stop sharing. Um, is that there are actually a lot of resources for mending in many, many communities. So, like in the Bay Area where I live, for example, there's a number of things. There's a group called Repair Cafe. All of our libraries have fix-it clinics. And they're events where anybody can bring anything, and people who are experts at repairing a given thing will fix it. So I go volunteer for the Repair Cafe like fabric group. So like I show up, I hang out for 4 hours, and people just bring me their garments that have holes and rips and tears, and I fix them and send them home with them. So there's almost definitely something like that in your area where it's like free repairs. So it's worth Googling if you have like a complicated mend that you're not sure how to start. Um, there will definitely be someone in your area that knows how to do it for free or very cheap. Um,
That
yeah.
is such a cool tip.
Yeah.
I'm literally about to, what, a mending cafe?
Yeah, or like Repair Cafe is the group that's in California, and they have like regional ones. I know in the US, but I'm positive there are things like it in other countries too.
This
That
is
is really
super
neat.
cool, Natalie. I do a lot of embroidery, but like
Yeah,
decorative embroidery. I started when my nephews and my nieces were little to decorate the room. I would trace, cute things on like a pillowcase and then put
yeah,
it on a circle and just kind of embroidery. But it never dawned on me to mend, to use that embroidery for mending.
yeah,
So love it. Thank you so much for sharing.
totally. I have one shirt that I didn't put it in the pictures, but like it had just a couple little holes. And so I did embroidered flowers like around the holes. And yeah, I just used the embroidery skills that I already had to make a cute little flower decorated shirt.
Amazing.
Yeah,
So happy you share that with us.
I
yeah,
think I saw it pop up in your presentation, the Make Do and Mend
yeah,
pamphlet. I stumbled upon that a couple years ago. I think it was during one of the world wars. The British government produced a pamphlet for the household on how to mend your clothes due to the war effort. They needed these resources, so they wanted you to make your own. And I
yeah.
found it's very applicable now to read through that and gives you techniques.
Yeah, it's super applicable. And like, there's a lot of people on the internet who make new content about mending, but like the techniques haven't changed in thousands of years. Like that image that I showed you, I use those same techniques, and that's just because it's the logical way to sew. So like there's so many resources out there, historical and new. And yeah, it's always fascinating to read those historical ones.
And another aspect that comes to mind for me is like sometimes you have a special shirt that you really, it's worn out and you really don't want to get rid of it. You can turn it into a stuffed animal.
Yeah,
You can do a pillow. So there's different creative ways that you can take that mending to the next level. So you
exactly.
just opened up a box of ideas for me. So thank you.
Yeah, I have so on a similar vein, I have as I'm sure all of us who work in tech do, a number of just like tech t-shirts that like I'm probably like after I stop working at that company, I'm probably not going to wear their tech t-shirt. Like I just have so
Yeah.
many of them. And I was like, this feels wasteful. But I'm not going to get rid of them. So like, what am I going to do with all this fabric? And so my project is that I'm making a rag rug out of it, which is also like a
Hmm.
historical thing of ways to use fabric that you're not going to wear anymore. And so I'm going to try to do it on my loom, like not just like a braided rag rug, but like a full-on rug. And so I'm currently in the process of like cutting those shirts into like little strips of yarn, basically made out of t-shirt material.
Wow, that'll be cool. You'll have to show us when you get
Yeah.
going. I'd
Yeah.
like to see the progress of that. I've heard of people doing that where they cut it and then they braid it.
Yeah, you
Then they
braid it and
use
then
the
like sew the
braid.
braids together. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
awesome. Love it.
Where would one procure a loom?
So, if you are interested in weaving at all, there are lots of ways to start that. But the smallest looms are basically like tapestry looms. So they're just like squares with little pegs, and you can sort of get used to the idea of plain weave. And then it gets more complicated from there. Um, Fun fact, we owe computer programming to weaving because one of the original looms prompted the understanding of binary, which prompted computer
Hmm.
programming, which is really cool. It's called a Jacquard loom. Um, it used punch card coding in the same way that we then later used it, which is really cool. Anyway, so looms can get really complicated. They can go all the way up to a like coded Jacquard loom. The kind that I have is called a rigid heddle loom, where it has the same like backward and forward motion that you would expect a weaver to do to like make the fabric. But it's on a smaller scale and it doesn't involve like major pieces of, machinery around you. So I've woven like towels, placemats, that kind of thing.
Rigid heddle loom.
Boom. Yeah. There's also
Cool.
like a shocking number of people who weave in the world. So like if you Google like a weaving class in your area, there will probably be one. Um, there are weaving clubs. They're called guilds, which I love. I find that delightful. I've joined a weaving guild. It's a crazy thing to say. I love it.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to Google weaving guilds after this call in addition
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
mending clinics. Ooh, I love that. My thing that I need to mend, oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
tell me.
it's a body pillow, but
Yeah.
the seam popped. So I need to get it out of oh gosh, my background's not very helpful.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. Like the seam on the cover split.
Yes, yes. So fortunately, this does come out because that's another thing I have. I have a pillow that my daughter uses like crazy, and the zipper like snapped off. And
Yeah.
We're
at some
looking
point,
at
I'm gonna get
you
it together.
doing pantomima because we don't
Yeah.
see what you're holding. It's so funny.
The invisible pillow.
Yes,
Yes.
that is so funny.
So yeah,
Good
fortunately, I
work
can
on
get it out of
pantomima.
here.
Does
But
on the pillow where the zipper came off, does the zipper still work? It just detached?
yes, the zip. Oh yeah. Well, I don't know honestly. I gotta take a closer look. She literally sleeps with it every night. So, but I need to get into it at some point in time, and wash it. It's like an old nursing pillow. Okay, but this one has a pretty simple, just
Yeah.
Mhm.
That one, that's actually pretty straightforward to fix. You could either do like a ladder stitch or just like turn it inside out and do a straight stitch. I'll send you two tutorials on how to do it. The ladder stitch will look nicer because it'll be kind of invisible. And you can make it just sort of match exactly the seam. like I once mended a hat that had a tear on a seam, like going across like this, and it's just
Yeah,
invisible. You can't see the mend at all.
that sounds challenging. So where I
Natalie, did you
Actually,
find
really
yourself
easy.
using a sewing machine, or you most of your stuff you do by hand?
I mostly do stuff by hand, just personal preference. I like hand sewing. I get frustrated with sewing machines because inevitably the thread gets tangled up and I'm like, I'm done. I'm out of here. So I prefer hand sewing.
Okay.
But yeah, both work. Yeah. But Pilar, seriously, a ladder stitch is very easy. I'm gonna send it to you. It's super straightforward.
amazing. I
Yeah.
think where I sometimes get a little it looks a little daunting is because they have the machine, you know how the machine does the like crazy
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
this
does
thing?
surging. Yeah.
Uh-huh. But then it like rips. So like it's not a true tear, like a piece of the fabric is still in here. And I'm
Mhm.
always like, oh,
Yeah.
glue? That's not right.
Yeah,
So
the ladder stitch basically says like, okay, there used to be a seam here, like between these two hands, and now I'm going to make a seam like this, like between
Mhm.
these fingers, and pull these ones behind. So you'll only see like this instead, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
So it's sort of like turning it like that. That was hard
And
to
some
demonstrate
of
with
the things that I've done on my end is that you get some satin ribbon, from the craft store, and then you can just either glue it. They have this double
yeah.
face tape, and then to the end, so just so that you can straighten, that area where the triangular stitching is gone, and then once it's, I don't know the right wording, it's straight or it's even, then you can apply this other stitch that she's talking about, and it'll be more reinforced. So it's kind
That's
of like
true.
a double way to protect it.
Yeah, and that stuff is usually like iron on, so it's pretty
Yes,
straightforward.
exactly.
Yeah. That also is a good idea for if it ripped near a zipper, because that's gonna get so much like friction as it's being tugged. So like
Mhm.
reinforcing behind it is a good idea.
Cool. These are
Na-
awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, Natalie, I had issues with Gore-Tex because I bend the needle.
Mhm.
Here in Ireland, it rains a lot,
Yeah.
so we have to use a lot of material that is for dry to keep you dry. So I end up bending the needles, but I notice if I buy a thicker needle, it
Mhm.
will, beat the purpose of having
Yeah,
Gore-Tex
because you'll
because I
punch
have.
holes in the Gore-Tex. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions for that type of material or?
Do. Yeah. So my suggestion is you know how you would bend like a bike tire, like with the kind of patch that fuses on? That's also the kind of patch that Gore-Tex needs. And so they make fabric patches that are like that, that are basically like Gore-Tex patches with like an adhesive back, and then you can just like mend it that way. Sewing into Gore-Tex is really hard. You have to get like an upholstery needle. And to your point, you end up poking holes in it. So it's like not going to be super rainproof. You could only really do that for things like, sleeve ends or whatever. But you couldn't do it for like a large rip. So
Okay,
that's what I would suggest.
perfect. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gabby. Thank you for letting me ask the question. You can go ahead now.
No, no, this
Yes.
was phenomenal. I'm so
Yeah.
happy. This is great.
Yeah, any tips for other 3D items like stuffed animals?
Ladder stitch actually also for stuffed animals. I have done surgery on stuffed animals the same way because the benefit of that one is that you can keep the thing as it is. Like you don't need to, like with a pillow, you might want to like turn it inside out to fix it. You don't need to.
Yeah.
You can just look at the front of it and carefully navigate your way along the edge. And so it's
Natalie, is
really
that the
easy.
one where at the end you pull it
Hmm.
and it gathers?
Yeah. And it sort of
Okay.
merges
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've
It's really
used
good
it
for
for
3D.
seams for
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
bottom of your pants. Is that el dobladillo? I don't know how to use some
Maravilla.
words in English. Yeah, the seam.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know how to say dobladillo in English either. It's,
Me neither,
There's
but it's fine. I know what you mean.
yeah.
certain things you go back to your mother tongue, it's
Yeah, yeah.
crazy. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I
And when
so
you were,
appreciate
yeah,
Pilar you getting her. This was very, very cool.
yeah.
I'm happy that this was helpful. And yeah, if you have questions about like, hey, I've got this thing and I want to mend it and I don't know how, like slack me a picture. I'm happy to advise.
That's
Perfect.
amazing. So I'll link your Slack in this notes doc. You're gonna be getting questions for sure from me. Because yeah, I do iron-ons when I can, but every now and then I'm like, ooh, an iron-on is not gonna cut it.
Totally. Yeah, especially for seams. It's not going to cut it.
Once you learn this new stitching that you're going to use it for everything. It's so
Seriously, I use it
amazing.
for everything. Yeah. Yeah.
What's it called?
Ladder stitch.
Ladder? Como
Mhm.
escalera, like a ladder?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool.
Yes. Oh, that's so awesome. Well, I know technically we're 3 minutes over our short meeting. So thank you so much for the extra minutes, Natalie, and for all
Yeah.
the great questions. I think this is going to be a really great resource that I will likely come and watch the recording more than once. This is such a
Glad it
great
was helpful.
reminder. Yes. Yes. And it's doable. We can all do
Very
it.
doable.
So, and it makes a big difference. So.
Thanks for
Awesome.
sharing.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
absolutely.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.